Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioners Gershenson, so I guess Gingell is excused. Hoffman,
Here.
Jackson,
Here.
Okenderfer, all right, Okenderfer.
Here.
If somebody has like a TV on or something, I can hear a TV on. If you could,
Radio, yeah,
something. Thank you.
radio.
Kowal,
Kowal is here.
thank you. Kuhn,
Here.
Long. I know you're here, Chris.
Here.
Luke.
Here.
Here.
Can you hear me or no?
Yes, I heard you. Thank you. Markham,
Here.
Okay. thanks.
McGilvery,
Here.
Middleton,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Howell,
Here.
Quarles,
Here.
Spiz,
Here.
Cobb,
Here.
Weipert,
I'm here.
Woodward,
Here.
Zach.
Zach, did you call?
Yes.
Here.
All right. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. It brings us to the invocation being offered today by the Honorable Tom Kuhn, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Commissioner Kuhn, the floor is yours to guide us in prayer.
Okay. Dear God, please help us provide open and transparent government as the elected representatives of the people of this great county. Please help us to be fully informed about the important issues we face as we vote on behalf of the citizens as members of this county commission. I would also like to ask that each of us take a few moments of silence to reflect and ask guidance in these troubling times. Amen.
Commissioner, I got a flag behind me to lead us in the pledge. Commissioner Kuhn?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag.
United States of
United
States
of America.
To the republic
For which it stands,
and
one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Kuhn. That brings us to approval of minutes for the May 20th, 2020 meeting. That was attached. Moved by Commissioner McGilvery, seconded by Commissioner Long. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. And the minutes are approved. Let the record reflect approved unanimously. That brings us to approval of the agenda. And so we can move it. Are there any items that commissioners would like pulled to the regular agenda from the consent agenda? Commissioner Kowal, what items would you like to move?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move item A under Pandemic Response and Economic Recovery Committee to the regular agenda.
Moving item A under pandemic to the regular agenda.
Thank you.
Commissioner Taub, I believe you had an item you would like to move. Commissioner Taub?
Yes, I would like to remove two items. Item D, and that would be on the consent agenda.
Item D under finance. Okay. And what else?
Finance, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yep,
And
that's
then
correct.
under health, I'd like to remove item A, please.
Move item A under the health, safety and human services committee. Okay, those items will be moved to the regular agenda. Any other items we want to move from the consent agenda to the regular agenda? Seeing none, can we get a motion to approve the agenda with pulling those items onto the regular agenda? Moved by Commissioner Lubes, seconded by Commissioner Wiper. All in favor of approving the agenda as presented and I guess amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Let the record reflect that the agenda is approved unanimously, moving item A under pandemic, item D under finance, and item A under health to the regular agenda. Okay. This will next move us into the presentations. And we're very fortunate to have a couple presentations this day, this evening. The first, we have our Sheriff Michael Bouchard, who's made himself available to join us to talk about an update on the local protests that are happening around the county. Obviously, there's a lot of things in response to the George Floyd incident in Minnesota, and our communities are reeling and struggling with how we move forward through that. And we're very fortunate to have Sheriff Bouchard to give some remarks to talk about from a sheriff's department perspective what we're doing to uphold and protect First Amendment rights and keep the community safe. So, Sheriff Bouchard, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and Madam Clerk. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you, albeit remotely, hopefully together in the near future. We have been working with every police agency in the county as it relates to the protests to assist them with resources to make sure that the protesters have a safe environment for them to make their voice heard, so that that they can be protected. Sometimes they walk near or by the road, and you want to have enough cars to be able to block the road and protect them from traffic and other kinds of things. So we have been called upon by agencies all over the county asking for us to send them personnel and vehicles to assist with their protests. The protests have been all over the county, and they've been very focused and very peaceful, and we're very proud of all the organizers. I've participated in some of them myself, and so has other deputies and chiefs around the county, to make sure that we all speak with a very clear voice that what happened in Minnesota is intolerable, won't be accepted. They need to be held accountable, and it's not what professional policing looks like. So in terms of what's going on, we have quite a list. I think we have about 10 more between now and Sunday close of business for us, meaning midnight. So that we're helping with or involved with around the county, and as they come in, we add to the list to make sure that there's enough of a presence again to keep everybody safe and make sure their voices are allowed to be heard.
Thank you, Sheriff. I think there might be some members of the board that have questions related to that. I know that in my community, and very appreciative of the support that the Sheriff's Office has been able to provide. If I can, I think the first question, then I'll tee it up to Commissioner Powell.
Sure.
I know that it's been recommended that communities identify areas for an ideal world, areas that will make available for those who want to engage in protests and bring their voices up. Are we playing a role in the coordination of that, or is that just kind of a community by community decision?
Well, it's kind of a mixed answer. So we offer that coordination and we offer that ability. We make suggestions. Sometimes it's heard, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the groups, like one group that's protesting tonight, they intentionally said they weren't inviting police, but obviously we're going to have an area to make sure that they're protected, because it sounds like, from what we've gathered, that they're going to be walking along or in the street. So, we try to support it maybe back in that kind of scenario versus the ones that reach out to us and say where would be a good spot, both in safety in terms of making sure no one gets hit, and visibility so that they're heard. And so, kind of case by case, we're happy to assist, we're happy to participate, and it kind of goes by each event. Some of these are organic, on Facebook and have little connectivity to us. And then sometimes they actually reach out to a police agency who then in turn reaches out to us. And I think we're assisting at least a couple other agencies tonight.
Thank you, Sheriff. Commissioner Powell. You're on mute, Commissioner Powell.
Sorry, I was just gonna ask about the one that we just had today, which is started probably about an hour ago, to see how did that one turn out? Be it because it's so close to us. So I guess since it's going on, if possible, I guess if we can get an update as to how that one went, because that one was one that's closer to the county ground, right? Aren't they marching around the jail and stuff like that today at 4?
I think that one's supposed to start at 1700 or actually 1900, which is 7 o'clock.
Oh, okay, at 7. Oh, okay. Oh, okay,
Yes.
well. All right, well, that was the only question I had, and I think I'll wait to see whatever else you're gonna address, and then ask for things later.
We've got quite a few resources, around the county complex right now.
Well, I will say this, just to share with my colleagues, when we've heard about it, because I think it's a group from Pontiac that's staging it, that's setting this one up. I will say I shared the information with our local sheriff department leadership, because our department in the city of Pontiac is governed by our Oakland County sheriffs, and they jumped right in to be open. They were open about it to be of any assistance that possibly we can assist with. So thank you again, Sheriff Bouchard, for that, and our Andre Ewan and Lieutenant Ford, our leadership there. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Commissioner. Any other questions? Commissioner Jackson, followed by Commissioner Whiteford.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sheriff Bouchard. And I really want to also just bring attention to the statement, the release that you sent to us today in reference to some of the actions at the state level and how police and law enforcement is going to be looking at training and different initiatives to prevent this type of occurrence from happening in our county. I represent a portion of the city of Southfield, and our police chief in Southfield implemented a new policy this week, very early this week. It's called the duty to intervene. And in the press release, or the release that you sent us today, you talked about all kinds of bias training and implicit bias training, and looking at how our police officers are trained as far as sensitivity. How do you feel about the duty to intervene policy?
Yeah, actually, if you read a little farther down in that release, it talks about that. That's a longstanding policy for ours. We actually have a very specific kind of expectation that if you see wrongdoing among your coworkers, that it has to be reported and it has to be elevated, and you have to intervene if it's something of the nature that we saw in Minnesota. So, we believe in that and have for a long time.
So, as far as implementing the policy amongst the different law enforcement agencies and deputies throughout the county, do you feel as though this policy should be adopted by each and every law enforcement agency within Oakland County?
I think it's a best practice. Obviously, I can't speak to each agency and what they have or haven't adopted, but I believe it's the best practice. In fact, a lot of the reforms that we're talking about today, some of the ones that were introduced in Lansing and passed the one chamber today, we've been asking for 5 or 6 years. I think I sent the Policing 2.0, a white paper, to the commissioners back in 2015-ish. And a lot of the reforms are articulated in that document, and I have sought legislation on these issues for well over 5 years, both at the state and the federal level. I think, the keys to better police outcomes include better recruiting, better backgrounds, and better training.
Thank you. And I know also that part of this policy is also to keep some law enforcement officers that might go from one law enforcement department or an agency to another when they have a record that's been blemished. And so you feel as though that also is a practice of yours with the sheriff's office?
Yes.
To prevent that from happening?
Yes, in fact, that's what is unaffectionately called the gypsy cop. And we sought legislation on that would mandate and open backgrounds and personnel files to applicant agencies. So if they came to us, for example, from another agency and had that in their file, oftentimes other agencies wouldn't share that file with us, or there was a reticence. So we wanted that required, that you open that file up and you're held harmless for doing so, because that what again unaffectionately was called the gypsy cop, when they would be terminated or resign in lieu of termination, then they would just go to another agency. And you saw that play out with a very traumatic Inkster brutality case, where he had come from another agency under a dark set of circumstances in terms of his behavior in the past. So, we believe in that 100%. Some of those reforms have been adopted, and those that are not are in my Policing 2.0.
Okay, last question. So to investigate to see which law enforcement agencies within our county may not be as aggressive with these policies or have not adopted the duty to intervene policy, where would we go to research that information? The Michigan Association of Chiefs, or where would we go?
No, each policies are adopted by community. They're not collated by any organization, because they're, quite frankly, a little bit different based on each community. Like, for example, Chase policies up in the UP may be different or need to have different considerations than they would in an urban area like ours. And so policies vary by community and by agency. So the simplest answer is the only way you'd have a peek at that or be able to understand what they have in them is to talk directly with that chief.
Okay, all right. So I guess that's what would have to be done. All right, thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate you being with us tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And Commissioner, next up, I got Commissioner Wiper, followed by Commissioner Markham.
How you doing, Sheriff?
I'm good. How about you?
Good. I was just wondering, how are you holding up, and how's all your command staff holding up, and how are the deputies holding up during this whole pandemic, and then more importantly, during you turn on the news and you see all the stress that's getting relieved all over the country. Are you guys doing okay? And do you need anything from us?
Appreciate the question very, very much. We were all horrified by what we saw on TV, and I don't believe it reflects the heart and soul of the majority of people in law enforcement. Those that act like that ought to be held accountable and ought to be removed from our profession. And so, there's an added strain and stress, and, there's a ton of death threats and different things that are being said to our frontline people across the county and across America. There was an officer that was ambushed on his way to work on a couple days ago, not far from us. Exchanged some 20 gunshots with some people that followed him and then just opened up on him. So there is an added level of stress. And what, I try to tell our folks is you have the incredibly most difficult balancing act short of the high wire. When you walk up to a car or into a situation, you have to be able to respond like that person wants to kill you, but you have to treat them like they're your best friend and not portray that potential to be able to respond. So, because that can change at a moment's notice. One of my friends walked up to a car to tell him to quit littering and threw something out the car window. And when the door opened, they stuck a gun in his stomach and pulled the trigger. He was just going up to tell him, don't throw stuff out of the car window. Turned out they had just held up a 7-Eleven. So you have to pivot on a dime in a situation like that, but you have to approach that car like it's mom or dad that, are stressed themselves. Maybe they lost their job. They're going to get something to eat for the kids, so it's a really important balance, but I'm proud of the way our folks have stepped up, based on today's stresses. On top of that, the COVID challenges, many of our folks had folks with at risk at home. So, they were staying in a hotel so they could stay online to work to protect the community and hadn't seen their family. So that, you're right. There's a whole lot of stresses, and the statistics came in last year that more police officers killed themselves than died in the line of duty. And I sadly think that that's going to be a worse number this year. So, we're trying to do what we can to support our men and women and let them know that they have folks to talk to. We have a very robust peer-to-peer program, to support and encourage them and their families as they face challenges both from COVID or perception of police at large, and maintain a smile and a happy face because I know they're doing the right thing.
Thank you. And as far as your sense on protests in Oakland County, it seems like it's been very peaceful and very honorable. Wixom had one yesterday. It seemed like a lot of younger people. It was very, just very gentle. And I think South Lyons having one on Sunday. So I think the sense in Oakland County is it's more respectful and peaceful.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some great gatherings and some great dialogue. I've talked to a lot of folks myself personally that have reached out and have voiced their concerns and given me ideas of ways we can do things differently or better. And one of the things that I mentioned when I was given the opportunity to speak at the rally in Pontiac gosh, it seems like a month ago, but it was Sunday, because there's so much going on. One of the things I asked was, what would be very helpful is to have more recruits from communities of color, because the more diverse our forces are, the more reflective are we with our population, one, but also the more we understand different situations more intimately and can have them explained to us by people that, have lived some of those experiences. And so going forward, recruiting has always been tough in the last few years in law enforcement. It's going to be even worse. And so one of the things I hope we can get out of this is a robust effort from communities of color and a broad-based group that help us recruit and help us get more people into the profession, because unfortunately we're getting less and less interest in it now, and I think it will become even worse.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wyford. I have Commissioner Markham.
Yes, thank you. And Sheriff Bouchard, I also want to say how grateful I was for the letter that you put out right away. It was very important, and welcome. I'm glad you did it. My question relates to body cameras, because I know there's differing opinions, and people are asking us, do the police or the sheriffs have them? And it's not consistent across the county. So will you just talk to that a little bit, please?
Sure. Years ago, I went to the legislature and asked them to enact some safeguards to protect the public's privacy from the intrusion of body cams. And if they were, to do what I had suggested and now has been adopted in a number of states, I felt very confident that the privacy and the personal nature of some of these situations of the public would be protected, and it would be much more universally accepted on two fronts, both in terms of getting them and wearing them, but also in terms of the program being able to be sustainable. And what I mean by that is two things. So imagine, if you will, the police officer, the things that we see and do. And I'll give you a personal example that I brought to the attention of the legislature. When I was a young officer, I responded to a call where a woman was getting out of the bathtub. She slipped and fell. She was stuck naked between the toilet and the bathtub. And so I responded and helped extricate her from that embarrassing moment. So when I brought that to the attention of the legislators that were having these meetings, with the other groups, they said, well, we'll just we'll have you turn off the body cams when you go in the house. Or their other solution was, we'll exempt stuff from inside your house where you have an expectation of privacy. But what belies the fact is those things, those embarrassing moments, those personal moments can be anywhere. I mean, many times in the dark of night, you run across a car and you check on it, and there's a group of people, two people engaged in sexual relations. And obviously embarrassing for them. I have personally checked on car and found two neighbors together or married to somebody else. You check the car to make sure that both people in the car, it's voluntary. And then, you basically move on. But if you had a body camera, that would all be captured and immediately FOIAble under existing Michigan law. So what I basically asked was, pass a law that says body cams aren't FOIAble unless it's for the purpose that are intended for, police accountability. That if there is any complaint about police behavior, it triggers holding the footage of any police video, triggers an investigation of that incident. When that investigation is over, it requires a release of the finding of the investigation and the footage. So focus it on police accountability, not on what they saw out in Washington State, where wannabe YouTube reality shows were coming in and saying, I want every body cam footage of every officer for the last 8 hours. And that became so overwhelming because by law, we also have to redact HIPAA information or personal identifying information. So you literally have to have somebody sit down and watch the whole 8 hours of each officer to know what they have to delete before they can give it out. And so a lot of agencies, once they had that happen, buckled under the request and closed their body cam programs. So long answer, but it's kind of a complicated situation. I would love to have body cameras as long as we could protect the privacy of those that we serve. I've been first on the scene of horrific homicides and different situations. And those are not things that ought to be out in the public domain that deal with rapes or domestic violence or hospice deaths. Those kinds of things are personal. And so, you know, if they were to amend the statute such that it focused just on holding police accountable, 100% supportive of it, and we would run with it. And I think you'd have a more robust participation.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner Markham. I think that's all the commissioners that asked to speak. I'm doing one final scan. Sheriff Bouchard, Commissioner Tao. Final comment, the question. Commissioner Tao.
I just wanted to thank Sheriff Bouchard for all that he's been doing and tell him how proud I am, not only of his group of sheriffs, deputies, but all the policing forces in the county and the people in Oakland County who came to picket and to protest as they should be able to do safely, fairly, and honestly. I think it's just absolutely incredible. And I'm just so proud that we were able to express our voices and have voices heard, a sheriff, from every religion, every walk of life, and not be squelched in any way, shape, or form, or silenced. And I think that's so imperative, and thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I would like to take the moment to thank you, Mr. Chair, and the other commissioners for your support of the Sheriff's Office. You know, we have had steady support from all of you for many, many years. And that's critical for us to do our job and do it well. And I know we've been chatting quite a bit about a training center, which is part of, I think, the solution to better police outcomes. Obviously, budgets are now going to be a challenge, but you know, and I mentioned this to some folks in the Lansing and on the governor's staff, that going forward, this training is critically important. We need to do it, and we need these practices, but you're going to have to invest in training and training facilities to make sure it gets done. So thanks again for your constant and steady support and involvement in helping keep Oakland County safe.
Right. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to hearing more as things develop.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. That moves us on to our second presentation, just a wrap up of the Bicentennial Tree Program. I'm going to give the floor to Commissioner Markham to give us an update. I know that a lot of activity happened, a lot of distribution happened. I got a lot of positive feedback. Commissioner Markham, why don't you give us an update on what we were able to do in fairly short order?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Megan has my slides, so she's gonna start. Again, the program was designed around the bicentennial. It was supposed to be 20,000 trees. We started the program in the fall, and my committee was Angela Powell and Chris Long. And so we hit a snag with the pandemic, and we were supposed to have tree distribution April 15th out of Michigan State Extension at Tollgate Farms in Novi. But Michigan State shut down and told Tollgate that they could not operate. So Relief Michigan, who we worked with, and the purchasing department and our staff got a refrigerated truck. We managed to get the nurseryman to agree to only hold us to what we had paid for in advance, and that came out to 5,000 trees. When we put those 5,000 trees in a refrigerated truck until we could get permission from the governor to loosen up the outside restrictions, and when they started to say landscaping was okay and that sort of thing, we turned the program back on. So next slide, please. Next slide, Megan. Whatever. Megan, are you there?
Oh, just 1 second here.
Okay. I will say that Relief Michigan really did a lot of great work for us through this process. They created a video, how to plant a seedling. They helped make, they came up with the literature that went out with each tree to tell people how to plant them. And it was great information. It was not too much information. I thought it was but thorough enough. And I've had some good feedback from folks who did put their trees in the ground and they're starting to grow. I have one in my backyard and it's growing. So I don't know where the rest of the presentation is. There's some great pictures of Relief Michigan, Mike Spiz and his daughters, and we had good feedback. Did any of you participate in any events at your communities? No?
Commissioner Woodward?
Yep.
I'd like to speak on that.
Who is that? I'm sorry, I can't see everybody.
Zach, it is Zach.
Commissioner Zach. Wait, I want to speak of that.
So
while we're getting
I
the
want to
technical-
thank, I want to thank Commissioner Markham and her team. What you accomplished during this crazy time is amazing. My little city of Huntington Woods had an initial order, but then with COVID, couldn't follow through. But then Commissioner Markham brought me 5 trees, and I was able to distribute them in Huntington Woods, and I can walk by and visit one of the seedlings growing on one of the residents, and the feedback was really positive in my community. So thank you.
Yeah, it just was a fun program. I want to thank the Parks Department and facilities and the BOC staff, Amy and Audrey, Andrea especially. They, you know, they worked really hard to make this come off, and I'm super proud of it, and they did the work. So we can do the presentation. We'll just mail it out to people, and we can move on, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
You could just give me a minute. I'll get it up for you.
Okay. Commissioner
If you want
White.
to move on to the next item, we can get it up for you.
But I just want to thank everybody. I mean, the pandemic really put a lockdown on the tree and the bicentennial. And Lyon Township did do a tree distribution, and it was successful. They did it at the Township Hall. And I talked to South Lyon. City of South Lyon took their trees, and a small batch of them, and they're going to plant them and put them in a tree bank to be used for tree replacement in South Lyon. So, program, the oak trees are going to continue. Thank you.
Commissioner Quarles.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to let everyone know that the presentation is in the packet that we're having. It's the first item behind the agenda.
Right, exactly. It starts on page 4 in the PDF, so anyone who's watching at home can pull it up in the full packet and all the photos. I know that Mr. Ward was pulling up, but I mean, we'll move on out of, oh, there it is. Okay, so.
All right, we'll go quick.
We'll go quick.
All right, so you can do the next slide. So we did the distribution out of Waterford Oaks, and you can see how many trees fit in a refrigerated truck. And these folks are from Relief, Michigan, who did the sorting and the bagging and the tagging and the distribution. Next slide, please. This is the pamphlet that we provided. It actually folded down to sandwich bag size. So it told you why we were planting oak trees and how to do it. I thought it was a really good, easy to follow piece of information. Next slide, please. And there's a video, if you want to go online, that's on YouTube at Relief, Michigan. So next slide. I think we all had a really good time. I do. And I'm glad everybody liked it. So thank you. I think that's it.
Yeah, a few more
pictures.
photos of trees and
Yep. So that's what 25 tree seedlings looks like right there, that I'm holding. Yeah, it was good. And that you can see the single seedling. That's about how big they are, about 2 feet tall. So, but they're living. They were in good shape. They were healthy when we got them and easy to distribute. So thank you to everybody who helped. Thanks, Chris.
Great. Thank you for the whole team of figuring it out. We'll bring us back to the regular agenda of the presentation. Okay. So the next spot, we're going to go to, Commissioner Powell.
I just wanted to let you know that I did reach out to sheriff staff because we needed to address the press release and we didn't have discussion on that. So they're waiting to let you know, Chair, when he'll be back on. Thank you.
Okay. The press release that was the press release for
regarding the 50 inmates.
Oh, you mean the
yeah,
press
that was really
the
the original reason why we needed him to come on. That was one of the 2 things that we wanted him to talk about and address.
Okay. All right. So it's as soon as we're going to go to public comment and then let the sheriff come back on and speak to that. Let's go to public comment. And so let me ask, Vandria Powers is on from public comment. Is there anybody, do we have any email comments or anyone online that would like to address us during public comment?
Yes, we have both currently, and I was told to let the people in person to speak first. So if Megan has any, I can put them on as well.
Sure.
We have Megan, I'm not sure if you're able to hear me, if you want to do anything. Oh, there's none in person, so thank you. So we'll let the people online speak for 3 minutes. I will start my timer. Sophia, can you hear me? It was working just a minute ago. Sophia, can you unmute and speak, please? Sophia Kapoor, can you unmute your line and speak? You have 3 minutes. Yes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
First off, saying I think there's no excuse that we're talking about 25 tree seedlings before we're talking about the racial injustices in our country and in our county. These murders of Black folks by police officers are racist, and we must all vote again. We must learn our real history as the country and as the county. Listen to and amplify Black voices. The systemic oppression of Black people is nothing new. Black lives matter, and refusing to say that is racist. There's nothing political about being opposed to the murder of Black people. By not denouncing racism and by not being vocally anti-racist and by not saying Black Lives Matter, you are taking a stand. White silence is violence, it is racist, and it must end. It's already late, but we must start somewhere. think everyone on this call should all be saying Black Lives Matter, should be saying what is going on, talking about what is going on in the country. This is no time to be talking about trees. It is a privilege to be thinking about trees and seedlings in this time when people in our own community and people in this country are dying every day, are fighting for anti-racist causes, and we all need to check our privilege and we all need to do better. And quite frankly, I'm really disgusted to live in this county right now.
Thank you, Sophia. Subhash, would you like to speak for 3 minutes? Subhash Kapoor, if you can unmute your line.
I think I would like to add to what Sophia just said, that we are all very frustrated what is going on in the nation. It is not acceptable. We can't just live with the status quo. And I think I got few suggestions. I think Sheriff Richard has done a good job. He's keeping the county safe. But there are a lot of things which we can add and do more. And if it was up to me, I would suggest that the cops or the officers who are patrolling, they should live in the community. If you look at what happened in Minnesota, only 7% of the cops live in that county. And that's not what works. We are acting like a military dictatorship than acting with people and listening to them. We need to hear the cry of people who are desperately looking for some help. We must not just ignore by giving $100 to a charity and get the guilt off that at least I did something. We need to do more than that. Thank you.
I would like to add something also, because I didn't use my full 3 minutes. I would advocate for an abolition of the police force and redirecting those funds towards community initiatives. I think that perspective needs to be shared, and we need to be listening to our Black community members. And when the overwhelming voice of what Black people are saying is calling for an abolition of the police force, which was started as a racist institution and a means of racial control, I think those voices should be amplified, heard, and listened to.
Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you for giving us that platform.
Thank you.
Thank you. Allison Kapoor, would you like to speak as well for 3 minutes?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
I did submit my comment via your comment form, but I am calling upon the Oakland County Commission to make a public statement at this meeting and to provide a public statement on the homepage of the Oakland County website that the Oakland County does denounce racism and will work to promote anti-racism in policy, through action, and that the Oakland County Commission embraces and demonstrates that it embraces the importance of this and leads by example. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. I also have a note that Lisa Brown would like to speak in public comment.
Thank you. I know that Joe is on the phone and and he wants to speak as well. So I'm going to defer to him first, if that's okay.
Of course.
Joe Roselle. Joe, you on the phone?
Mr. Roselle?
I am here. I was muted. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. The 3 minutes is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to speak in support of the resolution you have on your agenda today, 5141, as an opportunity for us to collaborate with our local clerks. It is working its way through our state legislature and hopefully will become law very soon. And so, as we stated in the committee meeting, we had an overwhelming interest from our local clerks, and someone from all of your districts, as a matter of fact. So we're excited to hopefully move forward with this. Timing will be an issue, but we've been assured that it will be taken up very soon. And so we're just asking for your support on this item.
You done, Joe?
I'm all set. Thanks.
Okay. Then do I go now?
I'll restart the clock for you.
Okay, thank you. Well, first, in consideration of our first three callers, I would like to say that Black Lives Matter. I would like to speak also to this resolution that has been now moved to the regular agenda. And what it is a template for agreements between my office and a municipality, a local clerk, to contract with us for us to tabulate their absentee ballots. Joe was a little modest in his comments that he actually sent out an email May 7th just to get a temperature from our local clerks to see who would be interested or if there was interest. He gave them till June 12th just to give time for this bill to even make its way through the legislature. And an overwhelming majority of clerks did respond saying they were interested. I will tell you that we would not be able to do all of those. But I can tell you that we have some municipalities that are stressed right now with the thought of tabulating their absentee ballots. We know that we've seen a large increase in absentee ballots with the combination of the pandemic as well as the passage of Proposal 18.3, allowing anyone to vote absentee with no reason needed. We have a community right now whose local clerk just tendered their resignation. And I know the commissioner on here is fully aware of that and is worried about it. So this is just the agreement. It's a template so that when this becomes law, we can act. Like I said, we're not going to be able to do everybody. Joe and I are constantly discussing like what our priority list would be as to who needs help the most. This is really about a collaboration between us and the local clerks, and it's us working together. I was rather disappointed a few meetings ago to hear one of the commissioners make the comment when the clerk didn't order enough ballots. I really expect more from this body than such a dishonest and misleading comment. After a committee was formed to investigate, and I know some were hoping to find a smoking gun with in my hand, and that didn't happen. Especially when I don't even want to get into all of it. My office, I am committed, Joe is committed to working with our local clerks to ensure that our elections run smoothly. You probably most of don't know, but in March, we received a phone call election. So the day after the election, Wednesday morning at 2:00 in the morning, actually, we were calling a local clerk to find out where their absentee ballots were, because basically we had everything else in and we were waiting for this, and they hadn't even started to tabulate. They were so overwhelmed with everything else that was going on in their office. So we want to make sure that our elections run smoothly, and whatever we can do, that's what we're committed to. So again, this resolution is simply a template agreement. It has to be agreed upon by both parties. This is
Madam
not
Clerk,
a take.
we've crossed the 3-minute threshold.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, I would appreciate your support. I know your local clerks would, because many of them want this. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Madam Clerk. Okay.
Then
Is
I
there any
have
further?
just two more online forms just to read.
Okay.
The first comes from Zoe Garden in Rochester Hills. She says, hello, I'm commenting to ask if the city is planning to make a statement denouncing racism in Rochester Hills, and if Mayor Brian Barnett will be weighing in. The next is from Teresa Harris from Oakland Township. she comments, as a resident of Oakland Township, I call upon Oakland County Commission to make a public statement at this meeting and on the homepage of the Oakland County website, oakup.com, which will remain visible in perpetuity, that Oakland County denounces racism and will work to promote anti-racism in policy and through action. And that's the end of the public comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. And thank you for the people who participate in public comment. I want to, we kind of skipped over because I think there was a question to be asked in my overlay. So I want to bring back, I'll declare public comment closed and bring back Sheriff Bouchard. And the virtual world's amazing how quickly you can, I can get you here like to appear.
Run down the hall.
All right. No, I appreciate it. Commissioner Powell, do you want to? Commissioner Powell.
So yesterday I came across an article that was in the paper in response to the back and forth in regards to the lawsuit or something, the judgment about the COVID individuals that we may have in our prison that has COVID. And then they further went into explain or elaborate on some issues that did come up from whomever filed this lawsuit against the sheriff's department. So when I seen the article, I sent the article to our leadership as the commissioners and just asked if you could just elaborate and just let us know where is that situation at, and really questioning the 50 inmates, what that is about, and what happened with that. Are we releasing them and stuff like that? Because it was all in this press release yesterday. So I just wanted to make sure all commissioners was aware that this was in the paper, and then give you the opportunity just to explain and update us as to where we're at with that situation.
Yeah, I can't answer what was in the paper. I haven't read the paper, or what the 50 inmates that you're speaking to, what that was referenced to. But I can tell you, from the beginning of this, we felt we were way ahead of all the best practices. When we were first sued, we were ordered by the court to do 16 things. 15 things we were already doing before the litigation. And the 16th thing was something we couldn't comply with, and that was to give alcohol-based products to all of the inmates. About 2 months before the lawsuit was filed, we actually had inmates that had been stealing Purell even before the COVID outbreak, and one was unresponsive and had to be taken to the hospital because they were drinking it. And so, that they were stealing that, and they were trustees. So for us to give it out was just unacceptable on lots of levels and dangerous for the inmates. So the judge ultimately agreed on that, and then ordered those 16 things to be pared back to the 15, which we were already doing. The premise of the lawsuit was it was an emergency and people were in imminent situations of potential death from COVID inside the jail. Now we're going on almost 5.5, 6 weeks since it was filed. And we are down to one inmate that has COVID positive. We're at our lowest population count since 1954, I believe, was the last statistic I saw. That's how low we are inside the facility. And as all you know, we were proactive about this, again, well before the litigation. I actually directed our team, and they put together a list of medically vulnerable individuals who are in jail that were not in for a violent offense or had a history of violence, and we sent it to every judge in the county, sentencing judge. As you know, the sheriff can't release anybody, but we suggested to those judges that these medically vulnerable folks that weren't violent and didn't have a violent history should be considered for release. A lot of them were released, so that helped us get our population down. We also just had an inspection fairly recently by the State Department of Corrections. They gave us they passed us on all counts, and now approved us to transfer prisoners out of our jail to their facilities that had been sentenced to prison by judges. So we'll be moving another 39 prisoners out of the facility by probably close of business next Tuesday is the goal. So we'll be at an even lower number. And again, we only have one positive. And the other important thing to note, you've seen tragedies around the country. We had no deaths from COVID in the jail, and not even one individual hospitalized. So I'm very proud of what our team has done. And I think, unfortunately, they were heftily maligned by the allegations, and the proof's in the pudding based on their results.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Sheriff. Thank you for coming back to be able to address that and speak to it. And Under Sheriff McCabe addressed the pandemic committee and go into more detail on the steps that have been taken. And we will definitely stay abreast on the steps necessary to keep not only all the inmates, but also the staff safe in our Oakland County jail.
Sure. And just as an aside, because I know all of you will be involved and engaged in, some of the reforms that are talked about going forward. You all have been part of stuff that we've worked on for years, going back to the downturn of 2007. We looked at a lot of things. When I became the sheriff, I'll back up a little farther. We had like 2,200 prisoners. We were actually renting space in other jails around the state. We had a contract for 100 beds in one jail alone to send our prisoners to because we were so full. And so over a period of time with the commission, we looked at who really needs to be in jail and asked that question very hard and fast, especially when we got into the budget downturn, and kind of focused on kind of a really basic question. Those that we're afraid of, violent criminals, need to be behind bars. Those that we're mad at, that have committed a crime but maybe need to have some punishment, they don't necessarily need to have that punishment behind bars. And working with the county and the commissioners and the executive, WHAM, weekend alternative for misdemeanors, tether programs, other alternatives. Our population, since I became sheriff, was down almost 1,000 even before COVID, well over. So, we have been ahead of a lot of these criminal justice reforms to focus on who really needs to be in jail and been supportive of others. So you can all congratulate yourself on that as this begins to develop and play out across the country.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
And we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So as we get ready to move in the next space, and I think some of the callers, brought up to this, and I think it's important for viewers who are watching this at home. As a board, we speak via resolution, but I feel it's actually important because as my colleagues and friends and family that watched and saw the terrible events and the subjugation that George Floyd was subjected to has caused and has reverberated all across this country. That brought to surface an ongoing conversation that happens too much. So I'm going to speak for myself that I will denounce racism. I am committed to anti-racism policy. Black lives do matter. And I would ask that my fellow commissioners work together to come forth with a resolution to such effect to the next board meeting that we can put in writing to address. But before then, if we could take a moment of silence for George Floyd, but also all the other senseless lives that have been lost to racism and the conduct that we saw play out in the last week. So if we can take a moment of silence moving forward, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. All right. We need to, moving on to reports of standing committees. This brings us to the consent agenda.
Chair, we have communications. Mr. Chair, we have communications.
We have communications. I apologize. Madam Clerk, please share with us all communications.
Yes, thank you. So we have two communications this evening, both dated June 4th. To the Oakland County Board of Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, please accept this letter as notification that I've exercised the authority granted under the board rules for purposes of meeting a submission deadline for a grant. The Oakland County Sheriff's Office has prepared a fiscal year 2021 Auto Theft Prevention Authority, ATPA, grant application on behalf of Oakland County in the amount of $1,967,116. The grant application deadline was June 1st, 2020. Due to the changes in the board's grant submission process and the board calendar, it was not possible for the department to submit the application for full board consideration in accordance with our normal procedures. The application was reviewed by all appropriate county departments. I have authorized the submission of this grant application. Sincerely, David T. Woodward, Chairman, Oakland County Board of Commissioners. The second one is with the same thing that, for a grant. This one is for the Oakland County Economic Development and Community Affairs, Community and Home Improvement Division. Prepared a fiscal year 2020-2021 housing education program grant application on behalf of Oakland County in the amount of $345,902. The grant application deadline was May 28th, 2020. So again, due to the changes in the board's process and all that, and it went through, it was reviewed by all appropriate county departments, and Chair Woodward authorized the submission of the grant application. It is submitted sincerely by the chair. That's it.
That's it. All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I get a motion to receive and file the communications. Moved by Commissioner Long, seconded by Commissioner Jackson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of receiving communications, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Let the record reflect that the communications have been received unanimously. Okay, now that moves us to reports of standing committees. We have a consent agenda. There is one more item that needs to be pulled off the consent agenda. So can I get a motion to move the consent agenda? The additional item we already had pulled off under pandemic item A, under finance item D, under health item A, and we need to pull item B off of finance onto the regular agenda for an amendment for consideration. So can I get an amendment to move Finance and Infrastructure Committee items C and D? Excuse me, I apologize. No, A and C. Under health, B through H, and the consent agenda and all the other items will be on the regular agenda. Is there a motion to move the consent agenda? As presented, moved by Commissioner Gershenson, seconded by Commissioner Lubes. Any discussion on any of the consent agenda items that we're moving? Commissioner Zach.
I believe that it's on finance, on consent, it's A and B that we are pulling, not A and C.
Finance. I'm just going back and forth.
Off the consent.
Commissioner Taub, I think you requested, was the item D, was it the authorized appropriation for Oakland County Economic Strategy? Or was it technology?
Commissioner Taub asked for
Commissioner Taub,
item
which was
D.
item?
Thank
Commissioner
you,
Taub asked
Diane.
for item D, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, I did.
Okay.
So that was
Item,
D, so it's,
okay.
so the consent agenda will include item A and item C on the finance agenda, and the others will be
Okay.
on the regular. Okay.
Thank you.
Everyone clear? Okay. The consent agenda has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll on adoption of the consent agenda.
Yes, on the consent agenda as amended, Commissioners Hoffman,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Okendorfer,
Yes.
Kowal,
Yes.
Boone,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Lubes,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
McGilvray,
Yes.
Middleton,
Somebody else is talking. Did you ask for my vote?
I just did.
Yes.
Yes, and whoever has the radio or TV on again, if you could please mute yourself. Miller,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Quarles,
Yes.
Biz,
Yes.
Cobb,
Yes.
Whitebart,
Yes.
Woodward,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Gershenson.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays.
Sufficient number voting in the affirmative. The consent agenda as amended is adopted. Move us to the regular agenda. I'm going to start with health, safety, and human services, since that was the one that was on here. Let's start with health, item A from the consent agenda. So I'm going to call him Commissioner Lubes.
Regular agenda.
The regular agenda. So,
So, Mr.
item A. Yep.
This item is the election services agreement for municipal absentee voter ballot counting. We did discuss this at our committee.
Commissioner Lubes, just one second. So that's Commissioner Lubes moves. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Gershenson. Commissioner Lubes, if you're going to explain, and then if there's any further discussion, Commissioner Lubes.
This is a new era for all of us. Absentee ballots will be up exponentially, and our cities, villages, townships need some help. I know that one of my cities has had the missed opportunity to have 2 city clerks since November, and we would be very grateful for help from the county for absentee ballots. And we did hear from Mr. Roselle and our county clerk regarding the need and support for this item.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. I don't remember who asked to have that item pulled for discussion. I see Commissioner Middleton, then Commissioner Tao. Commissioner Middleton.
Yes, I would Lisa be able to answer the question. I read the article, read the resolution that said they would pick up those absentee ballots that were within a municipality before 4 o'clock the day before. They would be containerized and brought to the county. Now, would you be able to start counting before the polls open? Or
No.
would you? Okay.
Sorry, that right now, that would not be allowed under the law. There is a bill in the legislature through the process that would allow just the opening of envelopes, no tabulation. So just opening the outer envelope before election day, but that has not been passed through both chambers yet or anything else. So no, we would have to wait until the polls open on election day.
Okay, and then you would have staff open.
Let me get some order here. Commissioner, direct your comment to me. Just a debate on the resolution.
Okay, Chairman Woodward, would you be able to tell me if there's going to be staff opening those envelopes after the polls open? There would be staff and then a fast counter, or how is it that the county clerk could do a more efficient job than adding more provisions out at the local communities?
Well, I believe, as we talked about it, the board, I think, unanimously adopted the legislation that would make it easier for local communities to adopt. For local communities to get this assistance from the clerk's office to help count their enormous amount of ballots. And so the county clerk's office has the capacity and the ability and the expertise to be able to do that and can provide that service to local communities. And
Okay.
Commissioner Lubes, I don't know if Commissioner Lubes has additional information to add to that. And it was debated, this was discussed in committee, correct?
Yes, and there was support for this. I would like to reiterate that the cities are very interested in having this happen. Just as we as a county struggle in certain areas, our cities are struggling also, and this is one way we're able to assist them.
Okay, my question is, would it be more efficient to provide more help out to the communities rather than consolidate? Why can they process quicker than what you can do without having to transfer ballots?
I think this is a policy question that's been debated at length in committee.
Okay, I'm not on that committee.
Well, you've got representation from your caucus that is on that committee. So we're going to keep this. We're not going to do committee work at the board meeting. Commissioner Tom, you had a question around this item.
Yes, I have two questions, or several, but I will ask just two. So what is going to happen is if you have 15 or 20 or 25 precincts, the clerk will have to go around to each precinct and gather ballots. I'm not quite certain on the procedure and how it's going to work.
I think we can ask, if the board would like, we can ask a report on how the clerk would see, to operate and use this power if the legislation ultimately is adopted that gives the ability for local communities to contract with us to help assist in counting ballots. This is not a mandate. This is a optional provision. I have full confidence in the clerk's office and the elections division to be able to use the power authorized by the statutory legislation that we all unanimously supported to be implemented.
So would this get rid of counting boards in local communities if they have a counting board? Mr. Chair?
I do not know. I don't think it has anything to do with the counting board.
Would
This
Mr.
has to do about
Rozell
helping
be able to answer
processing.
the question?
We're not going to do committee work at this board meeting.
Well, if I can't have my questions
All right,
answered.
well, Commissioner Taub, you had ample time to reach out to the clerk's office before this board meeting. This was,
I
I don't
did.
discuss it in
I
committee.
reached out- Mr. Chair, I reached out to my clerk's office and I'm asking questions on my clerk's behalf. I don't understand it.
Anybody
So I
else that
don't
wants to
have the
speak
right
to the,
understand?
anybody else wants to speak to the resolution?
Or I just want to ask something quick.
Commissioner Long. Oh, you muted
Well,
up.
I'm sorry, yeah. Sorry, Joe, you reported, when you guys had this meeting, everyone locally from the CBTs had some kind of representation there and they were all supportive of it. And, it is not mandated, it's just that they're reaching out for help. So if Commerce didn't feel like they had enough staff to count ballots, they can contact, and you think you're gonna have an overwhelming where you're gonna have to select the CBTs. At this time, you're not even gonna have enough ability to do all of them, so it's gonna be a process to select. But you were, you said in there, I'm just gonna go by what what you're saying, that the CBTs were supportive of this. It's not a mandate. If they want help, they're gonna contact the clerk's office.
That is correct.
All right, that's what I heard. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, Commissioner Taub for a second time.
I'm very confused now, Mr. Chair. I have asked this question, all right? I don't know the process. In the past, the process has been, if you have a question, and it's a legitimate question, not something silly, that you can ask, even though it went to committee. That's the reason we're here, to make decisions. And I'm going to ask once again what the process is, because it concerns me that people will be running around to precincts in the middle of the night if they don't have counting boards. That was my concern.
Thank you.
My second question, which I didn't ask, is that I understand, I don't know which community is, that somebody does not have a clerk. And in the past, there were always clerks who had retired who would be willing to step in for an election. Does that exist now?
That's ungermane to the debate before us. The debate before us is approving the standard language for working with local communities to, if the law gets passed, that Oakland County can contract with.
Well, the clerk mentioned it.
Okay.
The
Seeing no
clerk
further
mentioned
comment on the
that. I'm just
resolution,
asking-
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Okay, happy to answer any questions. Commissioner Jackson,
Pass. I don't even.
Krokendorfer,
Yes.
that was a yes, right? Just want to make sure I'm hearing.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, it's you're a little blurry in my ears. All right, sorry. Cowell,
Yes.
Kuhn,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Lubes,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
McGilvery,
Yes.
Middleton,
No.
Miller,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Quarles,
Yes.
Fizz. Sorry, all I heard was an S. Fizz,
Commissioner
here?
Spitz, can you say that again?
Yes, yes, yes.
thank you. All right, you only get one.
Okay.
Todd,
No.
Wipert,
Yes.
Woodward,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Gershenson,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes.
Okay, and Jackson, I had that you passed. Is that correct?
I'd like to place a yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 2 nays.
A sufficient number voting in the affirmative, the resolution is adopted. This brings us to the second item under the Health, Safety, and Human Services Committee. Commissioner Lubes.
Mr. Chair, I have one item on the regular agenda today. It's a resolution titled Sheriff's Office Use of 2007 MXT Vehicles from the Federal Government. This is.
Commissioner Lubes moves that the
Fine.
resolution.
Thank
No,
you.
that's okay. Seconded by Commissioner Hoffman. Commissioner Lubes on the resolution.
This would allow us to accept 2 vehicles to be used with our SWAT team. The vehicles would be housed in the southern end of Oakland County, probably either Madison Heights or Huntington Woods. And one of the vehicles will replace a Humvee that we have now. So that would bring us to 6 vehicles now around the county.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further discussion on this item? Commissioner Taub.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be supporting this item because on September 9th, 2012, Sergeant John O'Rourke, who had a wife and 4 kids, was shot and killed in West Bloomfield, Michigan, by barricaded gunmen. It was on Forest Edge Lane, as I recall. And we had a tank, the only tank we had then there, which was able to evacuate the neighbors in the surrounding homes on Forest Edge Lane. I found this to be an incredible action on behalf of the West Bloomfield Police Department, and they received help from other police departments as well, because this is not a really oftentimes occurrence in our community. And I will remember Sergeant John O'Rourke and his wife and his kids, and grateful that the lives of other people, from barricaded gunmen who got started about 9 o'clock on a Sunday night and they killed Sergeant John O'Rourke that evening, or continued on into the morning of the next day, of Monday, September 10th. So I will be supporting this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Taub. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the resolution, Commissioners Kokendorfer,
Yes.
Kowal,
Yes.
Kuhn,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Lubes,
Yes.
Markham,
No.
McGilvery,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Quarles,
Yes.
Fizz.
Yes.
All right, was that a yes?
That was a yes.
Okay, so sometimes yeses sound like passes. I want to make sure I'm getting it right. Taub?
Yes.
Thank you. Whitebert?
Yes.
Woodward?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Gershenson?
Yes.
Hoffman?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 19 yeas, 1 nay.
A sufficient number voting in the affirmative, the resolution is adopted. Any further business, Commissioner Lips?
No, thank you.
And that concludes items under the Health, Safety, and Human Service Committee. I don't have the actual order. Do we want to do pandemic or finance first? We normally do it. We do it, finance is usually first. So let's take up finance. So I'm at Finance Chair Commissioner Zach.
So I want to move management and budget fiscal year 2020 second quarter financial forecast and budget amendments.
Is that a motion by Commissioner Zach, seconded by Commissioner Long? In discussion, I believe there's an amendment to be offered. I believe it's on page 267 of the packet. Can I get a motion to approve that amendment? Moved by Commissioner Gershenson, seconded by Commissioner Markham. Any discussion on the amendments on page 267 in the packet? Commissioner Tao.
Could you please tell me which agenda item was removed?
This is item A under the finance.
Okay.
Excuse me, item B. Yes, item B on the consent agenda. This is the second quarter and budget amendments.
Oh, okay. I guess.
And so the amendment is on page 267.
Could somebody read that for us, please, Mr. Chair? I can't locate it.
Can't locate page 267? I'd be happy to read it. Okay. My tabbing's not working. Hold on a second here. Right here. And this is an amendment. Whereas, to add a whereas, the fiscal year 2020 budget amendment is recommended to reallocate $500,000 from the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security CARES Act, non-department federal operating grants revenue, line item account 610313 to Board Commissioners Public Information Expenditure, line item budget account number 731500, and then the budget amendment follows from that. Any further discussion? Commissioner Taub for a second time.
What?
Then Commissioner Long. Say pardon?
Long or Taub, Chairman?
Commissioner Long, then Commissioner Taub.
Okay, I just have a question. On moving, what are we going to use for public information? Do we know, or we're just putting a line item there to save, or do we have something in mind for that 500,000?
And I'm supportive of this amendment. I can address that, Commissioner Long. Obviously, any expenditure has to be in alignment with guidelines, putting out public health information between now and the end of the year to our residents. And it can be anything from testing and a series of other communications that are important to inform the resident about our county response to preparing for COVID and keeping the community safe.
So it's public information related to COVID-19. So if we do a press, some TV, something, or information, mailing or something, it's going to be related to COVID-19. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Taub.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I noticed a couple things that I have questions about, but it is not on this particular amendment.
Okay. So we'll come to it afterwards. You'll be first up. Seeing no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the amendment, Commissioners Kowal,
Yes.
Thune,
No.
Long,
Yes.
Lubes,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Gilvray,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Quarles,
Yes.
Biz,
Yes.
Taub,
Yes.
Whitebird,
Yes.
Woodward,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Gershenson,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Kokendorfer.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 19 yeas, 1 nay.
Sufficient number voting in the affirmative. The amendment is adopted. That brings us to the main motion. Commissioner Taub had her hand up. Commissioner Taub.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I noticed that there was a handwritten note. I can't find it, but I'm sure that Commissioner Zach can tell us what page it is on. In this budget amendment that indicated that Treasurer Andrew Meisner gave back his salary because of COVID-19. I didn't know we were able to do that, but is that a possibility?
So I would like to address that. We
Commissioner
did,
Zach.
when there was a 2008, 9, 10, there were some voluntary cutbacks that people took on at that point.
Okay.
To
Thank
that
you, Mr.
point,
Chair.
yeah, I mean, this is basically received as like a donation. I think that's equivalent to the compensation that's being given back. So it's an individual's contribution back to the county, but giving it from the salary that the individual receives. Commissioner Taub.
I thought that they had to give it back to like animal shelter or something specific as opposed to the general fund, but maybe I'm mistaken. Okay, thank you.
I mean, individuals can decide where they want to give it. I mean, in this case, I think giving back to the general fund. Thank you. All right. Any further questions on this item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the resolution, Commissioners Kuhn,
No.
Long,
Yes.
Lubes,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
McGilvray,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Quarles,
Yes.
Spiz,
Yes.
Taub,
Yes.
Whitebird,
Yes.
Woodward,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Gershenson,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Kokendorfer,
Yes.
Kowal.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 19 yeas, 1 nay.
Sufficient number voting in the affirmative. The resolution is adopted. Commissioner Zach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. County exec authorize appropriation for Oakland County Economic Strategy implementation. I move to recommend adoption of the foregoing resolution.
Moved by Commissioner Zach, seconded by Commissioner Quarles. Any discussion? I don't remember who asked to pull that out. Commissioner Taub.
Yes, I don't know exactly what this is for. It's $1 million and I have difficulty supporting $1 million when we know the state has close to $4 million in shortfall, okay? Not million, billion, excuse me, I apologize. And I don't understand what this program is about, but it's something about buying or getting tank companies and could someone explain this to me? please?
Commissioner Zach.
So I want to refer you, I personally we had a presentation by Deputy County Exec Sean Carlson, a very fine PowerPoint presentation. And I personally emailed it to all of the commissioners that weren't part of finance, as well as the fact that Megan also sent it out with the hope that people were going to look at that PowerPoint, which supports this ask. And it's an economic development initiative to move forward on defense, building our defense business in Oakland County. And that's what this ask is all about. And it's all described in the PowerPoint.
Well,
Commissioner Long. And then Commissioner Kowal.
And I have to agree with Commissioner Zach. It did help being on finance because Sean Carlson gave an excellent presentation. And it is included in our packet, I think, too. I think I saw it in our packet. Isn't it also in here? In our board packet, or did I see it online? But I also did send a thing out for everyone to read it too, because, you know, Commissioner Kowal, Middleton, and I, and others sit on finance, and $1 million is a big expenditure. But he justified it and gave a presentation in finance. So I actually sent a text out telling everyone to read it also, so our board meeting could be a little bit shorter. Thank you.
We're trying, Commissioner. We're trying. Commissioner Kowal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I started out at the Finance Committee meeting ready to grill County Deputy Executive Carlson about, you know, why we needed it, you know, because he comes from the defense industry and so on and so forth. But he made, like I said, a very, very good case as to what we're missing out on and why we need to allocate this $1 million and pretty much where it was going. So I ended up voting for it, and I think it's a good thing for Oakland County. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Taub, but Commissioner Middleton for a first time, then Commissioner Taub. Commissioner Middleton.
Yes, I'm also on finance, and there was a very good presentation. This was also part of Executive Calder's State of the State address. And Sean has been in that business. And I think as defense money comes available, he knows the right people in the network of how to, you know, return this 10 times to us at least. So I voted for it in Finance Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Middleton. Commissioner Taub for a second time.
Yeah, I sadly did not have the time because this meeting was called earlier than what I'd anticipated to read it. And I understand from my colleagues, this is was a very wonderful presentation. And I think in these times, it would be terrific because we all know that defense spending has increased federally. So it should give us an opportunity to have defense contracts in Oakland County as well as other places. However, if in fact there is a decrease for whatever national reason in defense expenditures, what is going to happen then? Does anyone have the answer to that? In other words, different presidents have had different interests in spending or not spending on defense. So there's kind of a dichotomy here. If defense spending goes down and we can't obtain any contracts, how long, I mean, when will Mr. Carlson have to report to Commissioner Zach on this particular issue or how well it's going, or to the Chair of Finance? Will there be an annual report, a semi-annual, on what kind of businesses have been attracted? What is that in the presentation?
This is just to start up, and we certainly will monitor this closely. It's a good investment. We didn't specify the exact monitoring schedule, but I will make sure that we bring it back to finance for a review.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further comments, questions from commissioners, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on this item.
On the resolution, Commissioners Long,
Yes.
Lubes,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
McGilvray,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes. Look at him.
Cole,
Yes.
Quarles,
Yes. Yes.
Biz,
Yes.
Cobb,
Yes.
Wypert,
Yes.
Woodward,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Gershenson,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Kogendorfer,
Yes.
Kowal,
Yes.
Kuhn.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays.
A sufficient number voting in the affirmative, the resolution is adopted. Commissioner Zach, is there any further business under finance?
That's all that I have today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. That brings us to pandemic response and recovery. I'm gonna call on Commissioner Gershenson. There's just the one item A that was on the consent agenda. Commissioner Gershenson?
And actually, okay, Mr. Chair, I'd like to introduce the Board of Commissioners establishment of Oakland Together Local Government Partnership Program and allocation of CARES Act funding.
The resolution is moved by Commissioner Gershenson, seconded by Commissioner Wypert. Any discussion? And I think Commissioner Taub, did you request? Oh, no, Commissioner Long.
It was Kowal that,
That was Kowal. I apologize. I'm sorry.
I did pull it off, so I don't know if I could go or I just had a couple of questions since it was pulled off.
Okay.
You want to do Eileen first?
That's okay. I'll do you first, Commissioner Long, and then we'll do
Okay,
Eileen.
just real quick, and then I think, I'm sure it's different, but I just wonder when do we anticipate the grant program to start, Chairman?
Part of the resolution is an application for like the first wave for city, villages, and township. That's actually included attached to the resolution. And I think the administration is very anxious to get it out the door as soon as we will adopt this. So I expect the applications going out as soon as, maybe as soon as tomorrow. Chief Deputy Chambers talked about convening all of the city, villages, and townships to kind of talk through what's an eligible funding requirement, taking consideration of FEMA and FEMA reimbursement, because CARES dollars can be used to pay the community's local share of the 25% for FEMA reimbursable charge, and what CARES dollars can be used for and what they cannot be used for.
Okay, so then she's going to, I've been talking to my local officials, but she's going to try to draw them all together and get them on with the application, tell them what the program entails. And just
Correct.
a couple concerns I had just on the oversight committee. I'm concerned, I think there's enough money if we're setting, allocating 35 million, but I was just a little worried about number 2 and 3 on there, the number of confirmed cases, the number of deaths, because my municipalities all were proactive and bought the thermometers for, and some sanitizer system. So there should be enough funding in there to reimburse those. I don't think we had many confirmed cases in Commerce. So I was a little concerned about number 2 and 3 and the deaths, but seems to be there'll be enough money to reimburse for some of that sanitation, thermometers for all of them, I'm hoping, all the communities.
Yes,
Okay.
Commissioner Long, I think you're absolutely right,
Okay,
especially
that
with
was
a lot
my
of these are
concern
FEMA. Yep, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Kowal?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize for this my late concerns. I just started getting some outreach today regarding, it's from people who have dealt with FEMA extensively in the past, emergency managers that have dealt with them on a large basis for, floods and whatever else. And they expressed great concern about how difficult it is to deal with FEMA, how many hours and hours and hours upon hours that you spend documenting everything. Then you talk to one person one day from the FEMA and they tell you one thing, the next day it's something else. And, you know, couple that with the fact, I guess, that they can come back and audit you a couple years after the fact and, you know, do a clawback, I guess, want to get paid back on some items. So they also brought up the way that I believe Macomb County just directly distributed the care fund. They didn't require that first, that the locals have to get, they can't, so what we're saying right here, right now, is that you cannot submit any expenditures that you have to, I guess, submit to FEMA first. And I'm sorry, I lost it on my screen again here. So the concern was that, okay, Macomb County, okay, they're only doing 10 million versus our 35 million, but it's real money because it's much easier to, first of all, deal with and not have to spend so much of the local resources just dealing with FEMA, and just to deal with the CARES money directly to reimburse for the expenses that they've had. And every local unit of government has had to suit up for this, so to speak. So I just want to see that, are we looking at real money, or are we putting $35 million out there that's going to be very, very difficult for these locals to actually attain if they're going to have to jump through all kinds of hoops to deal with FEMA first. And I admit that I'm not that familiar with it. I'm just listening to some other folks. I want to do right by my locals and not create some monumental government nightmare for them to have to go through. So if somebody can.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I can speak. Yeah, Commissioner Cole, I could, answer some, and then if other people want to weigh in. I'm supportive of this. I think I'll answer in two ways. I mean, one, I think we need to remember these CARES Acts are federal dollars, and there is still a considerable amount of hoops that we have to jump through, that we have to assure that they're used for appropriate things in accordance to U.S. Treasury guidelines. Local communities that use any of these dollars will have to submit appropriate reports to ensure that. A couple years later, they probably could be asked to verify. I mean, if we're audited and what have you, we have to stand by it. They have to stand by it, and everyone has to be held accountable. So I think that's going to happen regardless, because we're talking with federal funds. As it relates to FEMA, and it's my understanding that our first FEMA checks to the county are due to arrive, I heard, as early as this week, maybe next week. So where I share the questions or concerns that some of your locals had mentioned, like how long it took to get FEMA dollars. There seems to be, an accelerated path to move this out, given the magnitude of this particular issue. The idea around FEMA reimbursable, we don't want to set up a scenario, of double dipping in any way. So, what FEMA allows for is if an item is FEMA reimbursable, 75% covered by FEMA, CARES dollars can be used to cover the other 25%, freeing up dollars to do more. Worst case scenario, and I think it's something important that the oversight committee that's put in place, while we're approving an application with this one to get out the door as quickly as possible, the oversight committee is empowered to develop new applications that can bring in submissions, review, and then this body can make recommendations to this full board for consideration. So because in every case with the local government, there's an interlocal agreement that this board will have to sign off on per the recommendation of the oversight committee, we'll be able to see in fairly real time, as those applications come in, the recommended amounts. Those will come to the board for approval. If we need to make recommendations on changing the application process to move dollars out more quickly, to get dollars where they need to be, we have the flexibility to do that, and we've got representatives of both caucuses and the administration part of the oversight committee. Commissioner Cole.
Thank you. If I may respond to that, I see here, I believe it's the first, be it further resolved that it's in the resolution, the attached application for reimbursements for COVID-19 related expenses for Oakland County, local cities, villages, and townships is authorized. So we are, if we're approving this resolution, we're also approving this application. expenditure submission form, I believe.
Correct. That as the first. I mean, not the only, as the first. There
Okay,
may be
because-
other applications that the oversight committee can develop.
Okay, because I was gonna move to strike that and to strike that, and Chris Ward was writing up some the amendment for me just to strike that, be it further resolved. And
So you have an amendment being
I think-
drafted right now?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
Chris should have it ready to put up.
Is it ready? Oh, okay. Is it ready? Mr. Ward, is it ready?
It is ready. Give me 1 second to get it.
Can I ask something, Chairman Woodward?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Ask before we see it, and then Commissioner Cole, I'll move it. Commissioner Long.
I moved to amend, so, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Cole moves to amend. Is there a second? Now we put it up. It's hard for me to see. Is there a second to the amendment?
Let's see.
Second,
Okay, now I have
Seconded
a
by
question.
Commissioner Taub. Okay, and now there's a question from Commissioner Long on the amendment.
On the amendment, Commissioner Cowaller, Commissioner Woodward, so if we don't have an application, per se, she can still start the proceedings tomorrow to try to get with the local CVTs. But what do we do with no application if they wanted to start, handing in requests? So I just don't know. Commissioner Cole, maybe you can explain what you're thinking without an application, or Commissioner Woodward, just help me.
Yeah, well, let me say, I
Without
think
an
that's,
application.
so Commissioner Long, to that point, I'm going to oppose this resolution because I believe we need an application to get out the door. And the Oversight Committee does have the ability to develop future, applications. But I think this application gets us, allows us to get to community sooner and faster. And so I don't believe this amendment's necessary. I recognize Commissioner Cole's comments, and if the applications do not come in and the resources aren't there, we have an ability, the Oversight Committee has the ability to develop future applications, but we don't want to delay the process. We want to get applications out to our local communities as quickly as possible.
All right, one more question, then, Chairman Woodward, if I could address Commissioner Colwell. What is your concern about the application, that you want to strike the application not attached? Can I ask that to our Commissioner, or Chairman Woodward?
Commissioner, through me to you, Commissioner Kowal, do you want to answer that?
Right, I just, I don't know if anybody reached out to the emergency managers and the local CVTs, those that have them, to get their take on this. So I was just concerned that we were putting, an unnecessary burden on them to, go through processes which would take a lot of time and effort on their behalf, and that's why I was hoping that we could delay this until a little bit further discussion was had. I don't want to delay the process, but I also don't want to make it unduly burdensome on the locals, and that was my thought.
Okay.
Commissioner. Any further discussion on the amendment?
Yeah, if I could real quick, just respond.
Commissioner Long. Oh, sorry, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, on the amendment, my township supervisors and village managers are really calling me and stuff to get going on this. You know, they've spent money, and so mine have been grateful. Anything we can get going on it, and they didn't have concern about an application or anything. So in my district, I think I'd rather get it going and get their try to get their refund back for their. I haven't heard any concern about the application or anything, so that's why I was asking you, Commissioner Cole. You know, I did not hear any concerns about it. They're anxious to get the grant program going, so that's why I was asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further
Mr.
discussion?
Chair? Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say that
Commissioner
with
Cole.
that, with the others saying that their locals are on board with it, and I guess with your assurances that this process can change, and I'm asking directly for some more feedback on that and some more deliberation. I would like to withdraw my amendment.
Okay, the Commissioner Cole withdraws the amendment. Commissioner Taub, is that okay with you? I think you seconded. Okay, amendment is withdrawn. It brings us to the main motion. Commissioner Taub, on the main motion.
thank you. I have two questions about this situation. I've spoken to my municipalities, and some of them have not applied for FEMA yet. And some of them have applied and haven't heard a word. So what is going to happen under those circumstances?
I think that's a great example of convening all the local communities together, working with the administration, how to submit an application and work through those challenges, whether people haven't done it yet or they haven't heard back. Like what is that process? And that's why I think it's also important to have an oversight committee. We'll have representation from both caucuses that will be part of that and can answer those questions as they come up.
Okay, so when is that going to occur? Is there a date certain for the meeting of all the municipalities to ask questions such as that?
I don't believe that's certain yet, planned yet. I think it's pending the approval of this resolution, but I will have Chief Deputy Hillary Chambers reach out to all of us to make sure that we're all aware so that we can encourage all of our local communities to participate.
So is that in the resolution? I'm sorry, I did not read it. I do not recall.
About a webinar on how to submit that. That's not in the resolution. That was discussed and understood by the committee as when Commissioner Chambers, Chief Deputy Chambers, addressed the committee.
Okay, so that is in the works.
Yes.
Thank you.
And like I said, I've asked when those are scheduled that all commissioners know so that we can make certain we encourage all of our local communities to participate. Any further discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the resolution, Commissioners Lubes,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
McGilvray,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Quarles,
Yes.
Biz,
Yes.
Cobb,
Yes.
Vipert,
Yes.
Woodward,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Gershenson,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Kokendorfer,
Yes.
Kowal,
Yes.
Kuhn,
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays.
Sufficient number voting in the affirmative. The resolution is adopted. I would also like to get this oversight committee up and running. A motion to appoint Gwen Markham and Commissioner Lubes as Gwen Markham as the appointee of the Democratic Caucus, Commissioner Lubes as the alternate, and then Commissioner Spiz as the Republican caucus representative, and Commissioner Kuhn as the alternate. I believe both caucuses discussed that. Moved by Commissioner McGilvery, seconded by Commissioner Long. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Let the record reflect that the appointment is made unanimously. Okay, and you all can get busy and getting the money out to our local communities. All right, I think that concludes all the regular agenda items. I'm just gonna check staff and make sure that I didn't miss anything. Staff, I mean, you're helping me follow along here. I didn't miss anything, did I?
Nope, I don't think so.
Okay, I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay.
That brings us to reports of special committees. There are none. Brings us to special order of business. Commissioner Todd.
Yes, I would like to postpone my resolutions until the next meeting, please.
Move to postpone discharge for miscellaneous resolution 19248 to the next meeting. Done so without objection. Next up, I think I got Commissioner Kowal. Commissioner Kowal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to postpone consideration of discharge of my resolution to the next meeting as well.
Next regular meeting. Okay. Commissioner Kowal gives notice to discharge
I'm sorry,
miscellaneous
Mr. Chair, did we skip over the item from the health committee from the sheriff's office? Or did we do that one?
We did that one.
We voted on it.
I'm sorry.
We did that one. Thank you. Yes, Ward, we caught that one. Do that one first. So Commissioner Cole gives notice to discharge resolution 20139 for the next meeting. Then there's miscellaneous resolution 20167.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to give notice of intent to discharge miscellaneous resolution 20167. Thank you.
To the next meeting. Done so without objection. Okay, that brings us to unfinished business. There is none. Okay, new and miscellaneous business. We've got a few that are here. I think most will be referrals to committee. So I'm just going to take them in the order that are in our packet. Starting with item A, Board of Commissioner. I think Commissioner Tao, this is yours. Commissioner Tao.
Yes. I would like to ask for immediate consideration on open indoor pools in Oakland County for competitive swimming. Swimmers to train. I've had
So Commissioner Tao moves to suspend the rules. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Hoffman. Madam Clerk, please call the roll on suspension of the rules.
On suspension of the rules, Commissioners Markham,
No.
McGilvray,
No.
Middleton,
Yes.
Miller,
No.
somebody's dog needs to go out. Nelson,
No.
Howell,
No.
Quarles,
No.
Biz,
Yes.
Cobb,
Yes.
Wypert,
Yes.
Woodward,
No.
Zach,
No.
Gershenson,
No.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Jackson,
No.
Okendorfer,
Yes.
Kowal,
No, I'm sorry, yes.
Kowal, you're a yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Making sure. Kuhn,
Yes.
Long,
No.
Lubes,
No.
Mr. Chair, you have 8 yeas, 12 nays.
An insufficient number voting in the affirmative. The rules are not suspended. Commissioner Todd, would you like that referred to the Pandemic Committee and Pandemic Response and Recovery Committee?
Well, yeah, if it can get on the agenda.
It'll be referred without objection. All right, that moves us to item B. I think it's Commissioner Miller's resolution. Commissioner Miller? Commissioner Miller?
Yeah, which one's B? I got two of them.
I'm sorry. Under proposed resolutions for introduction, item B, Board of Commissioners recognizing the growing diversity of the residents and acknowledges the refugees, immigrants,
Oh,
and
yes.
newcomers.
I'm having problems picking up my agenda, but thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I would like to move to suspend the rules for resolution. What's that?
Yep. You're moving to suspend the rules on that resolution.
Correct.
Moved by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Powell. Madam Clerk, please call the roll on suspension of the rules.
On suspension of the rules, Commissioners McGilvray,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Quarles,
Yes.
Biz,
Yes.
Cobb,
No.
Wypert,
Yes.
Woodward,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Gershenson,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Okendorfer,
Yes.
Kowal,
Yes.
Kuhn,
No.
Long,
Yes. Yeah, sorry.
you're okay. Lubes,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 2 nays.
A sufficient number voting in the affirmative. The rules are suspended. Commissioner Miller? You move
Thank
the
you,
resolution.
Mr. Chair. So we have a miscellaneous resolution of the Board of Commissioners recognize the growth and diversity of its residents and acknowledges that refugees, immigrants, and all newcomers enhance the culture and the economy by declaring June 20th, 2020 as World Refugee Day in Oakland County.
Moved by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Taub. Madam, is it a discussion on the night? Commissioner Taub?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have just a little bit of an amendment, and it should be somewhere in the packet, which I don't know where it is. But,
Can you name is it a simple one or is it at the
it's
back?
a single word, yes, it's a single word. And I would like the single word legal, Legal, before the word immigrants in the resolution. I believe it appears 4
Okay,
times.
so wait, Commissioner Taub. Okay, so you're moving to add that. Moved by Commissioner Taub, seconded by Commissioner Middleton to amend. I'm going to be voting no. Madam Clerk, calls the roll on the amendment.
Excuse me, Chairman Woodward, can
Yes.
you, I didn't hear what she's changing it to, Commissioner Todd.
Commissioner Taub, is your amendment written?
Yeah, it is somewhere at the very end of the packet.
All right,
I feel, if I may, Mr. Chair,
I can get it up on the screen for you if you'd like.
Is it in the packet? This is the resolution. This is the amendment offered by Commissioner Taub. Commissioner Taub.
thank you. I think it's imperative that we welcome every single solitary person from another country who comes here as a refugee. And I think it's imperative that we welcome heartily every single legal immigrant to Oakland County. We have jobs, well, we had jobs, we don't right now. But we have a tremendous amount to offer immigrants and refugees. But I believe that we need to welcome immigrants who are here legally. So I've offered this amendment to welcome legal immigrants. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Like I said before, I'll be voting no against this on this amendment. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the amendment, Commissioners Middleton,
Yes.
Miller,
No.
Nelson,
No.
Powell,
No.
Quarles,
No.
Biz,
Yes.
Cobb,
Yes,
Whitebird, Commissioner Whitebird, not there. Okay. Woodward,
No.
Zach,
No.
Gershenson,
No.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Jackson,
No.
Kokendorfer,
Yes.
Kowal,
Yes.
Kuhn,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Lubes,
No.
Markham,
No.
McGilvray,
No.
Vipert? Not here. 1, 2. Mr. Chair, you have 8 yeas, 11 nays.
An insufficient number voting in the affirmative, the amendment fails. It brings us back to the main motion. Any further discussion? Commissioner Taub.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, but what was my vote on that?
What was your personal vote?
Yes, sir.
How did you?
A yes?
How did you vote?
I have you
vote
marked
yes
as a
for
yes,
your-
Commissioner.
You're marked as a yes,
Okay.
voting for your amendment.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, see no further discussion. Madam Clerk, please. Oh, Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Sheriff. I just want to add is like, there's no way that I can fully understand what refugees and immigrants have gone through to get here. I can only tell you the steps that we have taken as the Board of Commissioners in Oakland County to move Oakland County more welcoming means more than we think, and it restores hope to those that have lost hope. So I just want to say that for the record, and I appreciate my colleagues for supporting me and recognizing this day. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Miller. Madam Commissioner Taub, for a final time on this motion, on this amendment, and this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have had the good fortune to welcome thousands, well, probably hundreds of refugees in my time, because I'm much older than all the rest of you. My grandparents housed immigrants who fled from the Nazis in World War II. Untold numbers slept in their home, ate their food, and worked in their business. I understand exactly what refugees go through. I was part of it. And each and every one of those people who came over legally with a sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the resolution.
On the resolution, Commissioners Miller,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Quarles,
Yes.
Biz,
Yes.
or was that a yes?
It was a yes.
Okay, thank you. Just hear that S, so.
Me too.
Taub,
No.
Vipert? Oh, he left. Woodward,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Gershenson,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Kokendorfer,
Yes.
Howell,
No.
Kuhn,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Lubes,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
McGilvray,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Wipert. Do we know if Wipert's coming back or?
I
You got this-
believe he has to leave.
You had to leave? Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, you have 17 yays, 2 nays.
Sufficient number voted in the affirmative, the resolution is adopted. It moves us to number, I guess, letter C that's on this list here. I believe this is Commissioner Gershenson.
I was on the wrong one, so I'm sorry. I'd like to introduce miscellaneous resolution, establishment of Oakland Together Emergency Financial Assistance Program and appropriation of CARES Act grant coronavirus relief funds, and refer to the Pandemic Committee.
Referred without objection. Moves us to number D. Commissioner Nelson.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to introduce miscellaneous resolution, the establishment of the 2020 Oakland County Native Plants Initiative, and I'd like to refer it to the Health, Safety, and Human Services Committee.
Referred to without objection. Moves us to number E, letter E. Whose resolution is this? This looks like Commissioner Taub.
Yeah.
Commissioner Taub.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a resolution entitled Postponement of Board of Commissioners Special Projects to address the budgetary gaps related to coronavirus COVID-19 public health emergency. I don't know where to refer.
Referred to the Pandemic Response and Recovery Committee.
Thank you.
Referred without objection. That moves us to the next one. The Commissioner, is it Kokendorfer?
It is, yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. May I read
Is it
the-
yours? I'm
may I
sorry.
read-
Is it?
I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
just want to check. All right. I'm scrolling through them, so I gotta make sure that I'm right here. Yes. Number F, letter F.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to introduce a resolution. May I read its title?
Yes.
It's termination of local state and emergency powers due to coronavirus pandemic on June 4th, 2020, and amendment to purchasing policies and procedures for single source bids for temporary procurement of supplies or services related to a disaster or public health emergency. And I'd like to move to suspend the rules, Mr. Chair.
Motion to suspend the rules. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Hoffman. Madam Clerk, please call the roll on suspending the rules.
On suspension of the rules, Commissioners Nelson,
No.
Powell,
No.
Quarles,
No.
Biz, Biz. Okay, no Spiz. Todd,
Yes,
Woodward,
No.
Zach,
No.
Kirshenson,
No.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Jackson,
No.
Okendorfer,
Yes.
Kowal,
Yes.
Kuhn,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Lubes,
No.
Markham,
No.
McGilvray,
No.
Middleton,
Yes.
Miller,
No.
Biz,
Yes.
Bisley. Oh, there you are. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. You missed your first run around. Okay, and Whitebird is gone. So. Mr. Chair, you have 8 yeas, 11 nays.
Sufficient, an insufficient number voting in the affirmative. The rules are not suspended. Commissioner Kokendorfer, would you like that referred to Pandemic Response and Recovery Committee?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Referred without objection. That brings us to G, Commissioner Powell.
I have a resolution titled Creation of Oakland County Minority Owned Small Business Grant Program and Appropriations from CARES Act Coronavirus Relief Fund. And I would like to refer the item to the Pandemic Response and Economic Recovery Committee.
Referred without objection. It moves us to H.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to introduce miscellaneous resolution, Clean Drain Dry Dispose Pilot Program. preventing aquatic invasive species in Oakland County, and I'd like to refer it to the Health, Safety, and Human Services Committee.
Refer without objection. Brings us to I. Commissioner Kowal, I think. I believe.
Thank you,
Wait,
Mr.
Commissioner-
Chair. I have a miscellaneous resolution, Board of Commissioners, status of the control structures, dams, weirs, pipes, or other type barriers that regulate the level of the lakes in Oakland County. I'd like it referred, but I'm not sure if it should go to Finance and Infrastructure or Health, Safety, and Human Services Committee.
WRC, what's the WRC liaison committee? Is that health?
I think it
Public
might be
safety?
health.
Yeah, I think it's health. Yeah. Well, whichever the liaison committee with the WRC, we'll do that.
Okay,
Refer
thank
without
you.
objection. Brings us to the next one. Jay. Commissioner Taub.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a resolution at the behest of the president and vice president of my school board. Facilitation of a plan to provide broadband internet access to the school children of Oakland County impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. And I'd like to refer that to the Health Committee.
Refer without objection. Next, K. Actually, can someone do that for me? Commissioner Gershenson? Or Commissioner Powell will do it for me.
Okay.
Oh, never mind. Commissioner Gershenson.
Okay, Board of Commissioners designation of June 2020 as LGBTQ plus Pride Month.
And refer that to the Health Committee without objection.
Sounds good.
And L. Commissioner, is that Commissioner Miller?
Sure, we'll call that it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Miscellaneous resolution, Board of Commissioners support for Michigan Senate Bill 945 requiring police officers to undergo training, impact bias, de-escalation techniques, and mental health screenings. Refer that, I believe, Health, Safety, and Human Services.
Referred without objection.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any further? Commissioner Jackson?
Thank you, Chair. I have a resolution calling for the Board of Commissioners endorsement of duty to intervene for law enforcement office policies. I could refer that to Health and Human Services as well.
We referred without objection to Health and Public Safety, and whatever the rest of that committee's name. Yes, without objection. Okay, that brings us to announcement. Thank you. I think that's everything. Commissioner Gershenson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say several of us had talked about making a statement tonight, and there was some confusion because there actually was 8 minutes, 46 seconds, I think, of silence at 3:45 or 4:45, and not everybody was notified about it. So I just wanted to go on record as saying that I do believe Black Lives Mattered, and I've been horrified about the state of affairs in this country, and I appreciate the opportunity to make this declaration. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kowal, followed by Commissioner Powell. Commissioner
Thank you,
Kowal.
Mr. Chair. I would like to join in with Commissioner Gershenson and express my dismay and disgust at what happened last week and the resultant violence all around the country. I too believe that Black Lives Matter, and it's something that's long overdue that we took care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell.
I'd like to bring attention, I was gonna try to start displaying a nonprofit that is doing great in my district. So today I'm with PAL, Oakland County Sheriff PAL, and also they're kicking off their online registration from June 1st to June 28th. Everything will be done virtually. They will have baseball, softball, t-ball, basketball, cheer and dance, tumble, martial arts, and track and conditioning. I will send this to our staff so they can share with everybody, but this is for Oakland County, even though a lot of the kids they service is majority from Pontiac, but I guess now that we virtual, I want to see how many kids outside of District 10 will participate and join in Sheriff Pal. And then they're also doing a bottle and can drive to benefit Sheriff Pal and Sheriff Recycle and Kids program. And it's gonna go from Friday, June 5th through Friday, June 19th. Cans can be, and this is like pop cans, beverage cans. Oakland County, you can drop things off at Oakland County Farmers Market in the parking lot, which is located at 2350 Pontiac Lake Drive, Waterford Township, Michigan 48328. Please, no Saturday drop-offs. And if you have any questions, you can call 248-954-PAL1. So 248-954-PAL1. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. Commissioner Long.
I too just want to say I support the Black Lives Matter movement, and it's long overdue. And we have to think about what really made me think about it is when my 12-year-old son came to me with his phone with a video and was crying, saying, I mean, I teared up and I'm still tearing up. My 12-year-old said, Mom, listen, he's saying he can't breathe. Why would someone do that? You got to think about what these children think of seeing that. I mean, I was heartbroken to try to explain to my child what happened on that video when he came to me with the phone. It was very, very hard, and it's disgusting. And I'm 100%, I mean, this is long overdue and that should never happen. But, you know, we have to think of what the children see on that video. It was very hard as a mother to try to explain. There's no explanation for it, but to try to talk him through that video, and he still talks about it today, and it's this many days over, and he's not watching the news. He still remembers that video.
Thank you, Commissioner Long. Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I want to echo what Commissioner Christian said. I believe I am too with Black Lives Matter, and being married to a multicultural wife, this hurts me because seeing the pain that she feels that I don't understand, it hurts me because this is something that a level that nobody can understand unless they're, you know, they're affected by it, by their childhood, by their race. So this is something very important that we need to stand up and continue this drive, regardless who's here, who's not here. For years to come, we just got to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Taub.
Thank you. I have two things to say. The first thing I want to talk about and ask about is, I understand that summer camps can now happen, and I don't know whether Parks and Rec are planning to open summer camps or not. I have no clue, but a lot of our summer camps for children, if they do in fact open in this county, rely on the local middle school or high school pools for the children to swim in. So I think that bears looking into. It's going to come to a committee. I think it was referred to a committee. So I think that bears looking into, okay? That's it for now.
Thank you, Commissioner Taub. Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd also like to join my other commissioners and say that I stand in solidarity against racism and violence. Black Lives Matter, and I hear you, I see you, and I stand with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Powell. And then
I just want to say to all my colleagues who are Caucasian on this, in our meeting today, thank you. Thank you for stepping up for us as African Americans here in Oakland County. What I've been liking and seeing, especially like Sheriff Bouchard said, a lot of our local Caucasian leadership stood up to say that, you know, it's going to take them to start the lead of starting this change. And us, of course, partnering with the African American community to make the changes that we need so this stuff doesn't happen again. So I just want to thank all of my colleagues. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Markham, followed by Commissioner Quarles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I too have been appalled by what has happened. I have tried to learn over my life. I grew up in Pontiac. I have tried to learn over my life how to be an ally. I will continue to try to do that. And I'm going to listen, and I'm going to try and help in ways that my colleagues want me to help. So, Black Lives Matter.
Commissioner Quarles.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. It was referenced about the 8 minute, actually it was 8 minutes and 46 seconds of standing. And I appreciate my colleagues who have spoken up and shared their view and are willing to help. The 8 minutes and 46 seconds will follow each memorial service of Mr. George Lord. Today, he had a service in I think it's in St. Paul. They moved it to the university that's located in the Twin City. Once the memorial ends, it will end with the 8 minutes and 46 seconds of standing. And that's to commemorate how long the knee was on his neck. So if you are following it, there will be another service in North Carolina, and then the final funeral will be this weekend in Houston. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kokendorfer for first time, and Commissioner Talbot, I got you on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do echo all the comments of my fellow commissioners. I want to say, of course, Black Lives Matter. And, you know, I think when I look at my 4-year-old and 5-year-old daughters, I see them at the library, I see them on the playground, I see what color doll they pick up, who they choose to play with. They're colorblind. They really are. There's nothing natural about racism. Racism is taught. And that means that the onus is on all of us to make this right, to reverse the trends that are out there. And I certainly plan on doing my part.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Zach for first time.
So I stand with all of my colleagues on this. This was a deplorable event, very disturbing to me, very disturbing that people could watch somebody hurt this man. And out of the most painful moments, I hope to learn more, and more importantly, that we need to all take action together to prevent racism.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Ooh, this is not easy. I just want to say that we are at a crossroads, and as elected officials, I just feel as though that our voices matter more now than ever. It didn't begin with George Floyd, and I hate to say that I don't feel like it's going to end with George Floyd, but at the same time, we have a responsibility just to try to see the world differently, outside of our own experiences, outside of our own entitlement, outside of our own way of life, and that we have to make sure that this moment does not end, that we keep up the fight against oppression of anyone, and Black lives do matter. I have a son that does DoorDash, and I'm worried about him, where he goes. But I've always worried about him because he has a good heart and a good soul. And I don't think that he's perceived that way all the time. And all I can say is now is our time as a commission, not just to stand up because everything that's going on right now. We've come to a crossroads. We have more than one pandemic that has been going on for 400 years that we have to recognize. And we are not enemies of one another. We have not done things to warrant this type of behavior against our community. And I hope that we continue to stand together because that's the only way we'll progress. And I'm glad that Sheriff Bouchard came on today. I'm glad that the Southfield Police Chief decided to enforce a policy that may be active but inactive. So I just want to say thank you all for your comments. I appreciate it because we have to solve this together.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Tubb.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know, I have another kind of life with some friends that I've made over the years, and I've been in contact with one of my good friends, Tony Carter. Her son's name is Melvin. And if you know Melvin Carter, you know that he is the mayor of St. Paul, Minnesota. And so we are talking, and she asked me to do one thing, and that is to pray, because as you know, it wasn't just Minneapolis that was affected, but the Twin City of St. Paul has had a lot of problems as well. But Tony works every single day for everyone that she knows of every race, color, and creed, particularly in her community, to bring libraries and books. And she is so pained by the fact that a library was burned, that she can't even hold her breath and express how sad she is. I will also say that, Janet, I understand what you're concerned about with your son doing DoorDash, I think you said. My grandson got a job at one of the pizza places. He's a junior at Berkeley High School. And when I spoke to his parents, I said, is he going to deliver or is he going to work making pizzas? And they said, he's going to work making pizzas. And I said, he's not delivering, is he? Because I too, Janet, was very, very nervous. My grandchildren are biracial. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you all for your words. I think for the next time that we come together, I hope that we can come together with a resolution that speaks to some of the public comment, but captures all of this. I mean, this is real, this is raw, and it's why I love this board. Thank you for your time and dedication to this county, and we will address this. We will take on racism. We will make this better for future generations. Seeing no further comments, we're going to call the meeting adjourned to June 11th, 2020. The agenda says 9:30 a.m. It'll probably be called for 5 p.m. or at the call of the chair.